Week and then most of last week I was quarantined. So something I didn't mention in the last week's vlog, that day where I saw Jeffrey when we were editing PCH, that was a day where Jeff started feeling some symptoms, and later that week he got tested and lo and behold he was positive for the COVID. Also Kelsey, who also was in last week's vlog, I saw her the day before, she tested positive. Thankfully, you know, I guess they had some pretty mild symptoms, nothing too crazy. But yeah, so I was obviously exposed. So I notified my work and everything, and I was quarantined for the better part of 2 weeks. Took my test as soon as I could, which was Thursday, almost 10 days since my exposure. Did not get any results back yet as I'm recording this, which probably means I'm in the clear, because what I've been told for everyone who's been tested positive, they'll get the results back within a day. Yeah, so I was pretty much just in my condo for 2 full weeks. I've had my mom, you know, drop off some groceries for me and Chris for some other goods. Basically spent the majority of that time right here on this couch, just flipping through Netflix and watching shows, watching new shows, old shows, true crime stuff. Been on a true crime kick lately, and Netflix has been killing it with that particular genre. And that was like the first couple days, and I got really bored and decided to be a little productive. So for the majority of for the last 2 weeks basically, I started this series that I've been wanting to do for a while of painting my favorite frames of movies that are really well shot. Yeah, keyframe illustrations, what we would call it back in my biz dev illustration days. There is one particular artist who I follow who just, that's kind of what he does, it's what he's known for, and his paintings are just absolutely gorgeous. Decided to follow in his footsteps, and instead of coming with my own master compositions, decide to, you know, learn from the masters themselves, do some classic master copies, as we would say in my fine art days. For one, it gives me a good reason to watch films that are really well shot, whether it's movies I've already seen before, or movies I haven't seen in a while, or movies I have yet to see. It's a good reason to keep digesting new media, which is something I don't do as much as you would think. And yeah, it's been really fun actually to start going back into painting, which is something I want to push myself to do with my original, my first vlog attempts, back right when I graduated from LCAD. And what I mean by paint is actually not paint like a traditional painting, like actual physical mediums. I decided to paint on my iPad using the iPad pencil and Procreate painting app, which is a very awesome app. But yeah, since I didn't do much else this week aside from lounge around, be lazy, and occasionally work out, but mainly just watch films, find my favorite frame, and then put on some Breaking Bad or true crime documentaries in the background while I paint. And I spend no more than 3, maybe 4 days on each painting, and I'm very excited to go over that. Okay. Figured while I have these lights up, I might as well set up a little space while my living room is also destroyed. So, the first film/painting I kind of had a breakthrough was Zodiac, actually. I believe it's directed by David Finch? One of the Lynches or Finches. I get them confused. They're both very stylized and they're both very good directors, but I forget which one's which. One did Twin Peak, one did, I believe it was the girl with the dragon tattoo and stuff. I don't know. I conflate them all the time. I know a couple of these DPs, but I don't know them by name, you know? But Zodiac is a beautifully shot film with some great acting, just everything is well done about that movie. The art direction, the coloring, the cinematography, the acting. I love Jake Gyllenhaal and Iron Man before he was Iron Man. It's a great film, loved it. True crime is always a good genre. And that entire film was beautifully shot. You know, especially love the art direction and the color choices, the limited color palettes that they used for the film. But I decided to choose this particular frame because it happens at the penultimate moment for our main character, And it's just one where, when used correctly, a center frame composition can be very, very powerful. And for those of you who know me, I'm not a big fan of center frame compositions. It's not that I don't like them, it's just the fact that I find them a bit overused. They're a very powerful composition choice, and you should be using it sparingly. It's very tasteful with when you use a center frame, because it's a very objective, very strong composition. And when used powerfully, like when the character is finally realizes something, like in this particular scene, I got chills, because that you feel, you know, the realization that Jake Gyllenhaal is feeling at that moment through this unobstructed, objective center frame composition. And I got chills when I got it. Woo! Another reason why, I'm not a big fan of center frame compositions is because I've come from as I've mentioned before, classical fine art background, and it just gets a little boring to paint after a while. When you're just painting it, it's just a boring composition in the sense of spacing and shapes and stuff. When you're actually spending, you know, hours on this one composition, it gets a little boring if it's just in the middle. And I felt that while painting this, and yet I feel like the process of painting started to click for me, and I really enjoyed painting out like the rendering of the sheens of the metal. And for those, you gotta be very delicate, otherwise you'll over render real quickly. But really, in reality, what you need is just 1 or 2 strokes to show off that sheen. When you zoom in all close, it's just a stroke with a highlight. I also was pretty happy with the way I've broken up the shapes in the main guy's face. This is when I start to click to me where I'm painting with shapes to represent form, and that's something that I've been avoiding as a scumbler, as a glazing, scumbling oil painter. This is a much more akin to alla prima, wet on wet, or wet on dry, or what have you. Particularly like gouache, which is a medium I've always wanted to address or to tackle, because it's just a beautiful medium, one that forces you to be confident with your brush strokes, because you're not really there to blend, you're there to just place a shape on top of it. One of the fine lines that deter your level as a painter is how much blending you do on the canvas versus blending with the eye, if that makes sense. You're suggesting the form with shapes rather than actually going through and blending each gradient. And you can really tell when someone starts to overpaint something, like how I did for this next painting. The next one is a beautiful movie, beautiful shot movie, another great film. There Will Be Blood. Got Dallin Day-Lewis as the main character, and directors like Paul Christian Anderson, I believe. The DP was like Robert Ellis Hewitt or something, I forget. Yeah, this was such a unique frame. You know, it's like a center frame, but not so much. It has high dynamic range, it's high contrast. I mean, it kind of symbolizes this guy's doom. He's gonna die in the next scene. But yeah, you get this brooding sense when the cinematography of There Will Be Blood is so guttural, so emotional, so like it's stylized in that sense where you feel something. I love this shot. I love this movie. You know, it's hard to choose my favorite frame out of this film. But yeah, this one was one where like my lack of figure painting and lack of lack of painting these last 3 years really showed. Another big indicator of whether or not someone's classically trained versus someone who's, you know, self-taught is whether or not they've actually studied anatomy. A big part about being a classical fine artist is just studying muscle and skeletal structure of the human body so we can properly render it in our paintings and drawings. And you can see from these 2 figures that they're a bit wonky. My anatomy knowledge is quite rusty, as is my figure and my proportions. Everything was a bit, it kind of dawned on me like, wow, I'm very rusty. I used to be able to, you know, name and draw all the surface muscles. Now I just got like the manubrium, the AC process, the sacromium process, where the insert points are and like inserts and all that kind of stuff were, and the function, the stretch, all that stuff. I forgot it all, and I'm gonna relearn it. And it really shows in a painting like this, where to a layman it might look passable, but it won't look convincing. It won't look like a representation of someone. That's because the anatomy is wonky, the perspective is wonky, proportions is wonky, everything is a bit wonky. And try my best. Still a little bit of a learning curve. There's also a very filmic picture where like the highlights are really overblown, and it just that's one thing that's also something I learned from that. I'm kind of translating these into paintings. These values aren't going to be exact to the film, specifically this one, where the highlights are so overblown where they just become white. And as a painter, it's just really hard to properly to make something look good when you're using pure white or pure black. And any of these paintings, you will never see pure black. It's just a representation of pure black. And you'll never see pure white either. It's a representation of pure white. And it really shows painterly aspect when you represent true value in a more saturated form, if that makes sense. I'm kind of rambling at this point, so I should probably move on to my last and final favorite one so far. It is a still from Her by Spike Jonze. I forget who shot it. Her, I had a great time. I'm actually, as I'm filming this, I'm not done yet. I still gotta figure out how I'm gonna paint the reflection. But this one is where like everything started to click together. Now that the portrait, I'm a bit more knowledgeable. It's a bit more easier to remember. So I think this one turned out pretty decent. Still gotta figure out how I'm gonna render bokeh and the out of focus parts of a camera. I don't know how I'm gonna emulate that with paint. I've seen other artists do it, but those artists are fantastic painters, and so like I just don't know how. Maybe one day I'll be on their level where I could render bokeh and all the out of focus goodness without having to use like a soften filter, because that's lame. Yeah, so this is my favorite frame from Her, which is a great film. Probably the one where I learned the most about just like painting with shapes and stuff like that, and not really blending on the canvas and letting the viewer blend the forms with their eyeballs as they view it. It's very impressionistic versus classic oil painting. It's like Jan van Eyck versus Rembrandt. And if you like, if you guys are interested, if you guys will enjoy me just talking about like nerding about painting techniques and stuff like that, I would love to continue to talk about painting. It's my background, it's what I'm known for, or what I would like to be known for eventually, not for this video stuff. This video stuff is just temporary and it's just to get me jobs and to give me some sort of relevance in this entertainment industry where super competitive. I'm just not quite there yet, everything else. But yeah, I would love to, I can dissect older paintings and some of the great painters like Rembrandt, Velasquez, and see how they come up with the kind of show off their genius and to explain why they're so revered versus the other painters, and how we still learn from their magnificent works of absolute art. It's just, oh man, it's so beautiful. But yeah, I'm still not on the level where I can kind of go over my painting process over a time-lapse like voiceover, just because I'm still figuring out that myself. I'm still figuring out the best way to tackle these paintings. I think I'm starting to figure out a way, but the best part about Procreate, I mean, one of the best part about it, aside from being an awesome program replicating traditional medium, is the fact that it records a time lapse of your painting. And yeah, so I'll be able to talk over that in the future. This has been a rambly, a long talky one, but I hopefully the overlays of my painting will kind of make it somewhat more bearable, because I would very much like to do this in the future. And if you are interested, or if you like to continue to support me in that sense, please let me know. I would love to continue to paint. That's why I started this YouTube channel originally. Got a phone call. It's a great way to end the talking. Actually, perfect. It's my mom. Hello.